If you have loose change sitting in your car, your kitchen drawer, or in your pocket right now, you might be holding hidden wealth and not even know it. I'm serious. Collectors are fighting over half pennies that most people throw into jars or spend without thinking. Real auction shock is happening behind the scenes, and nobody talks about these. These coins change everything. Some of them look dirty. Some look ordinary. Some look worthless. But they are silent fortune. So check your pocket now, because today we're counting down the top 4 most valuable and ultra-rare United Kingdom and Australia half pennies worth big money, and each one gets rarer, scarier, and more valuable. Do not spend these coins. Stay with me, because the last one might completely flip what you think you know about pocket change. Coin number 1. Now let's talk about a coin that almost nobody respects, and that's exactly why it's dangerous. The 1956 United Kingdom halfpenny. Most people see it and feel nothing. That's the trap. Because in very fine condition, especially with those strange light green spots on the front, this coin has sold for $138,000. Yes, $138,000. And most people would have spent it on candy. Think about 1956 for a second. Britain was under pressure. The economy was shifting. The empire was shrinking. Industry was stressed. Metal demand was high. The country was navigating post-war recovery tension and global political pressure. Production numbers mattered, but quality control was not what collectors dream about today. That pressure created something unexpected. Imperfections. And sometimes, imperfections become treasure. The 1956 halfpenny carries the young portrait of Queen Elizabeth II on the obverse. Her crowned profile faces right, confident, calm, almost unaware that decades later, collectors would obsess over every microscopic detail of her hair strands and the spacing of the lettering around her bust. The inscription wraps around her image in tight formation. Now here's where it gets interesting. Those light green oxidation spots on the front, most people panic when they see them. Collectors don't. Because on this issue, specific naturally aged copper-bronze reactions, especially light green toning in very fine preserved condition, prove originality. They prove the surface hasn't been stripped, polished, or ruined. Original toning matters. Clean that coin, you destroy it forever. The reverse shows the classic seated Britannia, trident in hand, shield resting confidently beside her. Ocean behind. Power. Stability. Identity. The detail in the folds of her gown is something serious collectors study under magnification. In worn examples, those folds disappear. In very fine condition, they remain sharp enough to command respect. Now let's talk about what this coin actually feels like in your hand. It weighs approximately 5.67 grams. Solid. Noticeable for its size. The diameter measures about 25.4 millimeters, just under an inch. Thickness, around 1.14 millimeters. Not paper thin. Not chunky. Balanced. The girth has a smooth, plain edge. No reading, which means surface preservation is everything. Every tiny rim nick matters. And here's the twist. 1956 was a heavy production year on paper, but high survival quality pieces are rare. Why? Because half-pennies were workhorse coins. They were spent aggressively. They bounced through factory wages, grocery counters, public transport, newspaper stands. Nobody saved them. Nobody protected them. They were used. Hard. So finding one in very fine condition, with original surface integrity, is rare. Finding one with natural light green aging and untouched fields? That's different. That's obsession territory. Collectors fixate on the spacing of the date. The clarity of the 1956 numerals, the sharpness of the rim beads, the micro scratches in the field. They look for dye stress lines from overworked mint equipment. During the mid-1950s, the Royal Mint was operating under production pressure. Dyes were pushed longer than ideal. Subtle dye wear created minor variations that advanced collectors quietly track. And here's what most people miss. No mint mark. London issue. Which means authentication relies heavily on strike characteristics and metal composition. Speaking of composition, this coin is struck in bronze, primarily copper with tin and zinc. That's why those green spots form. That's copper reacting naturally over time. It's chemistry. It's age. It's proof the coin lived. But here's where things get emotional. When one of these surfaces in very fine, untouched condition, collectors don't casually bid. They circle. Auction rooms go quiet. Then aggressive. Because supply is shrinking. Serious collectors are holding, not selling. Demand rises quietly. Public awareness stays low. That gap creates opportunity. Hidden wealth. Silent fortune. This is not fiction. A verified 1956 UK halfpenny in very fine condition with original surfaces has reached market levels around $138,000 in the right competitive environment. And here's the part that should make you uncomfortable. Most people would never look twice at it. Do not spend this coin. If you find one, the first thing you check is surface originality. Do not wipe it. Do not polish it. Never clean the coin. Even rubbing it with a cloth can erase microscopic texture collectors pay for. That antique darkness, that uneven tone, that's value. Professional grading is critical. Authentication separates a lucky find from a life-changing opportunity. Without certification, serious buyers hesitate. With certification, doors open. Most people miss this. They think shiny means valuable. Wrong. Original means valuable. Patience creates wealth in this market. Rushing to sell raw can cost you tens of thousands. Waiting for the right buyer, that's strategy. And here's the psychological part nobody talks about. Collectors emotionally want this coin because it represents survival. It survived circulation. It survived cleaning attempts. It survived melting eras. It survived neglect. That survival creates narrative, and narrative drives bidding wars. When you hold it, you're holding 1956 Britain. Economic stress. National transition. Industrial grit. All compressed into 5.67 grams of copper alloy. You're holding a fortune. But what comes next is even bigger. Because the next halfpenny on this list wasn't just rare due to circulation. It was rare because something went wrong at the mint. And when mint mistakes collide with low survival, collectors don't just bid, they panic. Stay with me, because the next coin is rarer, more shocking, and far more dangerous to ignore. Next up, you know what's terrifying? Somebody out there has a 1959 United Kingdom halfpenny sitting in a jar, bright, untouched, never circulated, and they think it's just small change. That mistake could cost them $133,000. And I'm not exaggerating. The 1959 UK halfpenny in uncirculated condition is one of those silent fortune coins. It doesn't scream wealth. It doesn't glitter like gold. It's bronze. Humble. Ordinary. And that's exactly why people are accidentally losing it every single day. This is not fiction. This is hidden treasure hiding in plain sight. Let me take you back to 1959. Britain was in transition. Post-war rebuilding had stabilized, but economic restructuring was still shaping the country. Industry was modernizing. Consumer culture was rising. Coinage demand was steady, but the halfpenny was already becoming less glamorous, less respected. Inflation was slowly changing spending habits. Fewer people cared about the smallest denominations. And when a denomination becomes unimportant, something dangerous happens. Nobody saves it. That's why uncirculated examples of the 1959 halfpenny are so rare today. They were made to move. They were made to circulate. They were not made to sit untouched in pristine condition for decades. Yet a few did. And those few, collectors are fighting for them. Now picture the coin in your hand. It weighs about 5.67 grams. Solid bronze. You feel that density instantly. The diameter measures roughly 25.4 millimeters, just under an inch across. The thickness comes in around 1.14 millimeters, slim but sturdy. The edge is plain and smooth, which means every single contact mark stands out in grading. The girth feels balanced. Not bulky, not fragile. It was built for daily commerce, for pockets, tills, and bus fares. But an uncirculated example? That's different. Uncirculated means it never lived that hard life. No smoothing on Britannia's gown. No flattening on the Queen's hair. No rim dings from metal drawers slamming shut. And that is where the money is. On the obverse, you see the young crowned portrait of Queen Elizabeth II facing right. Her features are sharp, and in uncirculated condition, the fine strands of her hair remain razor crisp. The lettering around her, Elizabeth II Dei Gratia Regina FD, must be bold, separated cleanly from the rim beads. In lesser grades, those beads blur. In uncirculated condition, they pop. Collectors study the frost on the high points. They look for original mint luster, that soft cartwheel shine that rotates under light. That luster is fragile. Once it's broken by wear, it never returns. Never. Flip it over. Britannia sits confidently, trident upright, shield resting, sea behind her. In circulated coins, the lines of the waves fade. In uncirculated coins, those waves shimmer with detail. The folds in her dress remain deeply defined. The lighthouse and ship in the distance, sharp and intentional. This detail changes everything. Because the 1959 halfpenny was struck in bronze, primarily copper with tin and zinc. Bronze is reactive. It tones. It darkens. It spots. It ages. An uncirculated example often carries original red or red-brown mint color, and that natural coloration is critical. Original toning matters. Let me say that again for the people in the back. Original toning matters. If someone cleaned this coin decades ago to make it shiny, they may have erased tens of thousands of dollars in value. Never clean the coin. Not with cloth. Not with chemicals. Not with baking soda. Once the surface is stripped, collectors walk away. And here's something most people miss. 1959 wasn't considered a rare year by mintage numbers alone. That's the trap. Production occurred at the Royal Mint in London without a mint mark. But because halfpennies were still circulating heavily, high-grade survival rates are shockingly low. Coins from this year were used aggressively. They were everyday money. Kids spent them. Shopkeepers handled them. Banks recirculated them. They weren't saved in rolls the way later decimal coins were. So when an untouched 1959 halfpenny surfaces in true uncirculated condition, with full luster, sharp strike, no wear, and original bronze glow, collectors notice immediately. Auction rooms get tense. Quiet at first, then strategic, then aggressive. Because serious collectors know supply is shrinking. Many of the best examples are already locked away in long-term collections. Owners aren't selling. They're holding. And when supply shrinks while demand rises, prices explode. That's how you get to $133,000. Serious money. Life-changing opportunity. You're not just selling copper. You're selling perfection from a forgotten denomination. Now let's talk about production stress. By the late 1950s, minting equipment had been running for years. Ds were reused. Subtle, die-polish lines, strike strength variations, and microscopic imperfections create identifiable patterns collectors track obsessively. They examine die alignment. They measure strike sharpness. They look for exceptional examples, coins struck with above-average detail due to fresh dies. Those are the ones that command attention. And here's the emotional side. Collectors want this coin because it represents the last era of traditional British bronze, before decimalization discussions intensified in the 1960s. It's a symbol of old British currency, pre-decimal heritage. Owning a flawless example feels like preserving a disappearing world. That emotion fuels demand. But here's the danger. Most people still treat halfpennies like junk. They dump them in bulk lots. They ignore condition. They don't understand grading. And grading is everything here. Professional grading is critical. Without authentication and a certified uncirculated designation, the market hesitates. With it, confidence rises. Bidding increases. If you find a 1959 halfpenny, here's what you check first. Look for wear on the highest points. The Queen's cheek, the hair above her ear, Britannia's knee, and trident tip. If there's friction there, it's not uncirculated. Then tilt it under light. Does it have cartwheel luster, or does it look dull and flat? Most people misjudge this. They think looks nice equals uncirculated. Collectors demand technical perfection. Patience creates wealth here. Rushing to sell without grading can leave 6 figures on the table. And sending it to a professional grading service protects you from disputes, protects value, and opens access to elite buyers. Do not spend this coin. If you ever see a 1,959 UK halfpenny in bright, untouched condition, stop. Examine it. Because you might be holding hidden wealth disguised as spare change. And here's the uncomfortable truth. The next halfpenny we're about to talk about makes this one look almost common. It wasn't just rare because of condition. It was rare because hardly anyone even saw it in circulation. And when you hear why, you're going to check every old coin twice. Stay with me. What comes next is even more shocking. Next up, I need you to picture this. It's 1964, the Beatles are exploding. Britain feels modern, loud, electric. But at the exact same time, something incredibly quiet is happening at the Royal Mint. A halfpenny. A small bronze coin. Almost nobody respects it. And today, in almost very fine condition, especially with natural green spotting, the 1,964 United Kingdom halfpenny has reached $122,000. That's not hype. That's real auction behavior. And most people would toss it into a junk drawer. This is where people lose hidden wealth without even realizing it. Now here's the twist that makes 1,964 different. By the mid-1960s, Britain was already preparing mentally for change. Decimalization conversations were growing louder. Inflation pressures were shifting the importance of low-denomination coins. The halfpenny was becoming less relevant in daily buying power. Fewer goods cost fractions of a penny. Public interest in saving them? Almost zero. So what happened? They circulated heavily, and they were neglected. And that neglect created rarity, not in mintage numbers alone, but in survival. Because almost very fine condition from 1,964 is not easy to find today, especially with original surfaces intact. Let's talk about the coin itself. When you hold a 1,964 halfpenny, you're holding about 5.67 grams of bronze, a copper-based alloy mixed with tin and zinc, copper-based. That composition matters. It's why the coin develops those natural green spots over time. That green is not damage when it's stable and original. It's chemistry. It's age. It's authenticity. Diameter? About 25.4 millimeters. Just under an inch across. Thickness sits around 1.4 millimeters. Slim, solid, built for circulation. The edge is plain and smooth, meaning every rim bruise or nick stands out during grading. The girth feels modest, almost unimpressive, which is exactly why people underestimate it. Now look at the obverse. Queen Elizabeth II faces right, young, composed, crowned. By 1964, this portrait had become familiar in British pockets. But familiarity creates blindness. People stopped looking closely. In almost very fine condition, you still see definition in her hair strands. Her cheek retains contour. The lettering, Elizabeth II de Gratia Regina FD, remains readable and strong, though lightly worn on the highest points. Collectors zoom in on those high points. The cheekbone, the hair above the ear, the rim beads. Because in almost very fine, you get honest circulation wear, but you still retain character. Flip the coin. Britannia sits steady with her trident and shield. The sea flows behind her. In lower grades, the waves disappear into flatness. But in almost very fine condition, you still see texture. The folds in her gown remain visible. The lighthouse and ship in the distance still speak. And here's the detail that changes everything. Those green spots. On a 1,964 halfpenny, light green oxidation spots, especially when scattered naturally across the surface, signal untouched bronze. Original toning matters. That antique mix of brown, red-brown, and faint green tells collectors the coin hasn't been stripped or polished. If someone tried to clean those green spots off decades ago, the value would collapse. Never clean the coin. Never scrape it. Never dip it. That original surface is where the $122,000 lives. Now let's talk about production pressure. By 1964, the Royal Mint was still striking bronze half-pennies for everyday commerce, but the denomination was losing importance. Ds were used hard. Production efficiency often outweighed aesthetic perfection. Minor die wear, soft strikes, and subtle alignment differences occurred. Advanced collectors examined these microscopic details: die polish lines, strike sharpness, metal flow near the rims. Most people miss this. They think older automatically means rare. Not true. Condition plus originality plus survival equals rare. And survival for the 1,964 halfpenny in almost very fine is thinner than people realize. These coins were spent aggressively in the 1,962 usas, a booming consumer era. They rattled in jukebox change trays. They rolled across pub counters. They paid for newspapers, sweets, bus fares. Nobody saved them in pristine rolls. So finding one today that shows honest wear, not abuse, with stable green toning and intact detail? Collectors notice. Auction rooms get quiet when one appears certified and authenticated. Because professional grading is critical here. Without third-party authentication, confirming the grade and originality of surfaces, serious buyers hesitate. With certification, competition increases. And here's what drives demand emotionally. 1,964 represents the edge of an era. Just a few years later, decimalization would completely transform British coinage. The halfpenny would fade from daily life. Owning a strong 1,964 example feels like holding the final breath of traditional pre-decimal Britain. That emotional weight fuels bidding. Demand is rising quietly. Supply is shrinking aggressively. Collectors are holding, not selling, which is why prices have reached around $122,000 in strong market conditions for exceptional, almost very fine pieces with original surfaces. Serious money. Silent fortune. A life-changing opportunity disguised as bronze. Now listen carefully. If you find a 1,964 halfpenny, here's what to check first. Look at the Queen's cheek and Britannia's knee. Is there smoothing beyond light wear? Then tilt it under light. Do the green spots look stable and natural, or bright and recently disturbed? Natural oxidation blends softly into the surface. Cleaned spots look harsh. Cleaning destroys value forever. I've seen it happen. Someone tries to make it look better and erases 6 figures. Patience creates wealth in this market. Let professionals evaluate it. Let grading confirm it. Don't rush to sell raw at a flea market. That's how fortunes disappear quietly. And do not spend this coin. I don't care if it looks worn. I don't care if it's brown and spotted. Check it, because you might be holding hidden wealth and not even realize it. And here's the part that should make your heart race. The next coin we're about to reveal isn't just rare because of condition. It exists at the intersection of 2 nations. And when collectors from both sides start competing, prices don't just rise. They explode. Stay with me. What comes next is even more dangerous to ignore. Next up, you ever look at a coin and think, that thing looks rough? Good. Because the 1,942 Australia halfpenny I'm about to show you is supposed to look rough. Bronze tone. Tiny pores across the surface. Almost fine, even normal good condition. And yet, this so-called ordinary World War II coin has reached $152,000. Let that sink in. $152,000. For a halfpenny, most people would reject as damaged. This is where people accidentally lose life-changing money. Now let's rewind to 1942. Australia was in the middle of World War II. The Pacific threat was real. Industry was under pressure. Metal supply chains were stressed. Resources were being redirected toward ammunition, machinery, defense. The Royal Australian Mint wasn't operating in peaceful comfort. It was striking coins in wartime conditions. And wartime minting creates something unique. Stress. Improvised metal sourcing. Die fatigue. Production urgency. That pressure left fingerprints, literally. Lunch on the 1,942 halfpenny. When you hold it, you're holding about 5.67 grams of bronze. primarily copper blended with tin and zinc. But wartime bronze wasn't always as refined as pre-war mixtures. Minor impurities and alloy inconsistencies can create those tiny surface pores collectors obsess over today. Diameter? Approximately 25.5 millimeters. Thickness? Around 1.2 millimeters. The edge is plain and smooth. The girth feels compact, sturdy, purposeful, like it was built for survival, not beauty. And survival is exactly what makes this coin rare. Let's talk about the obverse. King George VI faces left. His portrait carries wartime seriousness. The inscription reads, George VI DGBR OMN Regates FD IND IMP. In almost fine or good condition, the high points of his hair show wear. The cheek softens. The rim beads may flatten slightly. But here's the thing most people miss. Those pores across the surface, that textured bronze look, collectors don't immediately see damage. They see wartime metal stress. They see authenticity. They see a story frozen in alloy. Flip the coin. The reverse shows the Commonwealth of Australia kangaroo. Powerful, grounded, iconic. Commonwealth of Australia arches around the rim. The date 1942 sits proudly below. In almost fine condition, the kangaroo's fur details soften, but the outline remains bold. The fields may show micro-pitting, tiny pores from metal mixture inconsistencies during wartime production. This detail changes everything. Because in 1942, Australia wasn't thinking about collectors 80 years in the future. They were thinking about survival. Metal planches may not have been as perfectly refined. Dies were pushed longer than ideal. Production urgency meant imperfections slipped through. And today, those imperfections separate ordinary from extraordinary. Now here's where it gets serious. Most 1,942 half pennies were circulated heavily. Wartime economies rely on coin movement. These coins paid soldiers, bought rations, funded daily survival. They didn't sit in velvet cases. They were used. Hard. So when one survives in almost fine or good condition, with stable bronze tone, natural pores, and no harsh cleaning, collectors notice. Auction behavior gets aggressive. Not loud. Focused. Strategic. Because supply is shrinking. Many examples were melted later for metal recovery. Others were corroded beyond recognition. And the ones that survived? Often cleaned by well-meaning hands decades ago. Cleaning destroys value forever. If someone polished away that porous bronze surface to smooth it out, they erased history. Money! And potentially erased 6 figures. Never clean the coin. Never scrape those pores. Original toning matters. Professional grading is critical here. Wartime coins require authentication to confirm originality and surface stability. A certified example builds confidence. Raw coins create hesitation. And hesitation costs money. Now let's talk about why collectors emotionally want this coin. 1942 represents Australia standing firm during global chaos. The coin isn't just bronze. It's resilience. It's scarcity born from crisis. It's metal struck under pressure while the world was on fire. Owning one feels powerful. It feels historic. It feels rare. And in today's market, strong examples in almost fine or good condition with authentic wartime surface characteristics have reached around $152,000 in competitive sales environments. Serious money. Hidden wealth. Silent fortune disguised as a worn brown coin. Most people would never imagine that. And that's why people are accidentally losing it. If you find a 1942 Australia halfpenny, here's what you check first. Examine the surface under light. Are the pores consistent and natural, or do they look like harsh corrosion from improper storage? Natural wartime alloy texture blends softly across the fields. Corrosion digs sharply. Then check the date. Strong numerals matter. Look at the kangaroo's outline. Even in almost fine condition, it should remain clear. Examine the rim for excessive filing or damage. Most people miss this because they think rough equals worthless. Wrong. Rough can mean rare. Patience creates wealth here. Let experts examine it. Let grading confirm its authenticity. Don't rush to sell it in a bulk lot. That's how fortunes vanish quietly. And above all, do not spend this coin. It may look ordinary. It may look worn. It may look like nothing special. But you could be holding $152,000 in bronze. This is not fiction. This is hidden treasure hiding in plain sight. And if you think this wartime survivor is shocking, wait until you see what happens when a mint error collides with a transition year. Because the next coin, it doesn't just break records. It breaks expectations. Stay ready.